Hello everyone and welcome to Cinderful Gaming. I hope you're all doing well, I hope you're all staying safe, and most of all, I hope you're all fighting that war against the Grey. Today's video, we're going to talk Bounty Hunters. What Bounty Hunters is a brand new core battalion. We're going to go through and talk about exactly what this is in just a sec, but this is one of the new core battalions in the new General's Handbook, and it is one of the special battalions we get for playing in Gallant. So, let's talk about this battalion and what makes it special. So, first of all, this battalion can contain 2 to 3 troop type units, and troop units are units that can be any sort of unit really, but they're not a leader, behemoth or artillery battlefield role on their pitched battle profile. Units in this battalion, when attacking with melee attacks against a Galatian veteran unit, have their damage characteristic of their melee weapons increased by 1. Now, it's important to talk about Galatian veterans. This is a new rule that has been brought into the game. Galatian veterans in this particular type of game played in Gallant in this new battle pack, they're battle line units that do not have mounts and have 4 or less wounds. And they get their own benefits, and we'll talk about them in a different video, but for now we're talking about Bounty Hunters. We're going to talk about a battalion specifically designed to kill those particular units. Now, units in this battalion can also themselves be Galatian veterans, though this means they will both be at the benefit of the battalion getting the +1 damage, but they'll also be at risk from other units in this battalion, so if your opponent's also taking the battalion, you'll be at risk of having that unit be able to be +1 damaged as well. To avoid the above, in today's video, we're going to look at units that cannot be Galatian veterans, but are still troop choices for the purposes of the battalion. This means we'll get all the benefits, but none of the negatives. So, we are looking for battle line units that have a wounds characteristic of 5 or more, or are mounted, as units with a mount can never be Galatian veterans. And so, with all of that said, we're going to go through every army in the game. I'm going to talk about one unit I think is a great choice for a bounty hunter battalion in your army. So, with that said, let's get cracking on into it. So, starting off for destruction, we have Fellwater Trogoffs. These are 4 wounds on a 5+ save, and they have the ability to heal every one of your own hero phases. On top of the fact that, remember, when you're playing Gloomspike Gits, you've got ways to make that healing better if you're under the light of the bad moon. Now, they do have the issue that they do become battleline or when playing in a Trogoff-led army. So if you've got a Trogoff general, they will become battleline. However, if this is the case and you're not wanting to have a unit that's battleline be your bounty hunters as well, I'd suggest maybe in a Trogoff army looking at something like Grot Bounders instead, which have got similar sort of output, a little bit less but more models for the points, so somewhere similar in the range. And these models put out 4 attacks each, hitting and wounding on 3s with -1 rend and damage to base. Obviously, in bounty hunters, when they're fighting, they will be damage 3, so some really nice damage there. They're also -1 to hit in combat, which gives them some good survivability along with their healing, and, a 5-up save and 4 wounds is pretty survivable. And they also have a short-range shooting attack that's actually 6-inch range, hitting on 2s, wounding on 3s, with a -2 rend and damage D3, so some extra punch in there as well to clear out if there's a couple of annoying little models left when, you've attacked and you've not wiped them out and you think you're going to be stuck there for the next turn, not able to charge off into somewhere else. You can use this shooting attack to hopefully get rid. They also have a 2-inch range on their melee weapons, which is really nice as well, meaning you can get lots of these models into combat nice and easily. The benefit being, when they are a battle line option, you can take these in units of 9, which is a really tanky, survivable unit. For the Ogre Maw Triumphs, I have Man-Eaters. Now, Mournfang Cavalry are certainly a great option. However, for a battalion called Bounty Hunters, could I really look past having Man-Eaters as a unit in there? They're 4 wounds on a 5-up save. However, they can't be battleline in any way, so they'll never be veterans. So this is pretty cool for them, meaning, they can never be targeted back by other bounty hunters. They have 4 attacks with their slices and bashes, hitting and wounding on 3s with -1 rend and damage 2. And also have a single attack from their Goblin Bite, hitting and wounding on 3s with no rend and damage 1. Meaning, we've got damage 3 and damage 2 attacks here out of the unit. On top of that, they've got a decent shooting attack as well from their pistols and throwing stars for 1 attack at 3s and 3s, no 1 rend damage D3. And on top of that, they've got the ability to pick a variety of bonuses thanks to their been there, done that rule. Now, what's cool about this is you pick this after armies have been deployed, but at the start of the first battle round. And before the game begins, which means you don't actually have to have this on your army list, you can choose this based on what your opponent has actually put on the table. Now, this can be my personal favourite, especially in bounty hunters, for an extra attack, meaning they'll have 5 attacks with their slices and bashes, hitting and wounding on 3s with -1 rend damage 3 against any veterans. Or they can reroll hit rolls of 1 for their shooting attacks, and maybe that's something useful. Maybe your opponent's got a heavily shooty army and want to get across that table quick, so run and charge could be cool. And the ability to not take battle shock tests as well, I think, is really understated in the current edition. So all of these, I think, do have their place. Definitely the default one here in a Bounty Hunters battalion is definitely the +1 attack, but I think all the rest will have their place and time, and the fact that you can choose these before the game begins based on what your opponent's brought to the table is really useful. Moving into the Auric Warclans, and the first of the 3 actual factions within the army. So we have the Bonesplitters. Now, Savage Big Stabbers are definitely my favourite one. Of course, you can choose to have either of the Boar Boys, but I think Big Stabbers for me, this is all about bounty hunters, really. 4 wounds on a 6-up save. However, Bonesplitters Army 1 have a 6-up ward save thanks to their cool little war paint. This unit can never be battle line, so it can never be hit back as, you know, its own veteran. They have 3 attacks with a 3-inch range in melee, which is really nice. They're hitting and wounding on 3s with -2 rend, which is why I really like them, the nice high rend, and a damage of 2, obviously, to damage of 3. Whenever these models are also slain with a melee weapon, they can do so and do some mortal wound damage, potentially before they die as well. For me, just a really fun Auric unit to use on the table. For me, a fun one for the Bonesplitters. Next, for the Aurics, we have the Ironjaws. Now, Gore Grunters are definitely the way to go if you're not wanting a unit that can be hit back. However, I will say the Brutes definitely have their place. Their ability to stop battle line units scoring around them is really cool and a really interesting ability for bounty hunters. However, Gore Grunters, because they can't be hit back, are why we're going them here. 5 wounds with a 4-up save. They're a cavalry unit, meaning they can never be a veteran unit themselves, with a 9-inch move, which doesn't sound a lot for cavalry, but Ironjaws have plenty of ways to increase movement and be fast across the table. You've got 2 different weapon options for the unit, which is really cool. You've got Pig Iron Choppers, which have 4 attacks, 3s and 3s, rend -1 and damage 1, or the Jagged Gore Hackers, which I think are the choice to have. 3 attacks, 3s and 3s, rend -2, damage 1. You trade off an attack, but you do get more rend, which is going to see more of your attacks go through. Rend -2 against most base infantry is going to be pretty solidly enough. You then got 4 extra attacks out of your mount for 3s and 3s to wound, no rend, damage 1 as well. Gore Grunters also get mortal wounds when they charge. They do have a way that this needs to work for each particular model. It makes it gets to deal some mortal wounds, and if you've got Jagged Gore Hackers, you get a benefit to this as well. So just even more reason to take the Jagged Gore Hackers as the weapon option for your Auric Warclans Auric Gore Grunters. And lastly, for the Auric Warclans, for the Crawl Boys, Hog Rot Slitters. Now, they do not have many options. Gut Rippers are battle line and are generally not a great pick to do this with. For me, a big issue with them is they're just not survivable. They will not stand up to many things. However, it is worth mentioning, when you use actual Crawl Boys Auric units that have the ability to get the mortal wounds off, that the damage characteristic does increase, so the mortal wounds do increase out of them. So there definitely are options there. However, I'm going to talk about Hog Rot Slitters. 1 wound on a 6-up save. They can never be battle line. There's not a lot to talk about there. That's not great. However, 2 attacks each, hitting on 4s and wounding on 5s is not great, with no rend and damage 1. However, each 6 to hit and melee scores 2 hits instead of 1. I think you could definitely go with just volume of attacks, because all of a sudden they become damage to attacks. I think if you can potentially try and find a triumph for +1 a wound, or find other ways to get +1 a wound into your force, this could be a really interesting unit that just uses weight of dice with damage to attacks and puts lots of them into your opponent. They also have a short range attack of 8-inch for a shooting attack, hitting on 4s, wounding on 3s with -1 rend, damage 1, which is actually surprisingly good for, you know, someone like goblins to have, as they are throwing grenades at people, to be fair. For me, this is just an interesting pick. There's not a lot for Cruel Boys. I was looking at the Cunning Crew to figure out something, or a single Marsh Call or Slogoff. There's not a lot of options outside of Gut Rippers, and Gut Rippers aren't particularly great at it. I don't think the battalion actually suits Cruel Boys all that well. You could put this on your Bolt Boys to make them threatening in combat, I guess, but still, once again, not great. I don't think anything really... If you can get the right sort of buffs around these Hog Rot Slitters, they're probably the best option you got. And so, lastly, Sons of Behemoth. Now, this is going to be pretty quick, because actually, Sons of Behemoth don't have any models that fit into either of the new battalions. However, Stomper Tribe, we'll talk about this because the subfaction of Gargants actually gives you a similar sort of ability. Now, this is when you've got a War Stomper as your general, you can then take Man Crusher Gargants, and Man Crusher Gargants in that particular subfaction of the Sons of Behemoth get +1 damage on their clubs when they're fighting against 10 or more models in a unit, or +2 damage on their club when they're fighting against 20 more, effectively serving as a bounty hunter unit or something like it. However, they do that against any unit with 10 or more models, so it would actually hit other bounty hunters that have got 10 or more models if they're cavalry or something like that as well. So, something pretty cool. Now, while the Gargants don't get those battalions, they do have ways they can play like that. And I think Stomper Tribe, if people are going to start running large blocks of infantry, could be a really interesting way for Gargants to play. We've got a getting started video on the channel, which you can find linked up above, so you can go check out how to get started with a Stomper Tribe. And so, that's the end of the video. Thank you all for watching. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And drop us a comment down below letting us know what you enjoyed about the video. If you'd like to come help support the channel in another way, you can do so either by joining our Patreon or YouTube members, or grabbing some channel merch off our merch store on Teespring, which is on our YouTube store as well. You can also come chat with me and other members of our little community here and our Discord server, which is linked down in the video's description, along with the Patreon and YouTube members links. And as a special shout out to all those Patreons and YouTube members, we'd like to give them all a shout out. So thank you to our Patreons: Christian Weir, James Soren, Greenskins Gaming, AJC, Kenny Lowell, Outer and Shot First, Andrew Bowen, Nathan Fee, The Rising Ape, Q Dynamic, Agu, Anthony B, Anton Nilsson, JJ Austrian, Average Wargamer, Domir, Mark Harvey, James Cater, Derek, and Giapi390. And a special thank you to our YouTube members: Green Roost Gaming, Kenton Young, Chris Wallace, Ronya, Locke Lorick, The Johnny84, David Ellsworth, Revenar, Wolfric Nick, Broken Chef, Ariana Edwards, Sean Scott, Pink Nico Fire, and Robin Mankiller as well. Lastly, a special thanks to Lady Witchfox Art, who does all the amazing artwork for the channel, and to everyone who comes on the channel and helps us create everything we do. Thank you all for watching once again, everyone. Stay safe, stay well, and most of all, keep fighting that war against the Grey. Ciao for now.